Welcome to the session on schedules. For the session, I will cover an overview of using schedules and the best practices, how you can save schedules to your template plan for use in future projects. Let's get started with the types of schedules you can create in Chief Architect. There are several types of schedules built into the program that range from specific, such as cabinets and doors, down to custom schedules. They all work in a similar fashion. Once you learn how to create them, modify them, it will apply to all types of schedules. Schedules can be placed in your floor plan view, in an elevation view, or in a CAD detail, which is really a preferred method, as we'll discuss for best practices. As I get started with a sample plan that I have open here, the access to the schedules can be found underneath the Tools menu. There's a category for schedules. You can see a listing of all the schedules that I just shown a slide on. You can also create a schedule by clicking in the rooms, and I'm going to hold my Shift key down. I'm going to click in a grouping of rooms that make up the bath suite. There's a tool in the lower edit menu that is Create Schedule from Rooms. I'm going to do this in the floor plan view. We can take a look at what's going to happen when we place a fixture schedule here. So we'll select the fixture schedule. I'll come in and place it off to the side. The first thing you'll notice is I have my floor plan view, and now I have my schedule for the fixtures. And if I go to create a construction drawing, I'm going to have to crop one of these things. I may have to worry about the scale. I might want to send the floor plan out at a 1/2 inch. And then what scale do I send the fixture out? So it creates a little bit of a mess when I'm creating construction drawings. If you're just after placing a fixture schedule and you want to look at it right here, it's a quick way to do it. Let me delete this schedule. Let's look at one more approach to doing this. Let's use our elevation camera. Take an elevation of this wall. Similar to the floor plan, let's come into the Tools menu, down to Schedules, and I'm going to place a cabinet schedule, and I'll place it off to the side. I don't have as many objects in this schedule. Again, if I want to send this out to the layout sheet, maybe at a 1/2 inch, I now have to worry about, is my sheet of paper going to be large enough to fit both the elevation and the cabinet schedule? A little bit difficult to do that, and not as clean as the approach that I'm going to show you, where we're going to put it in a CAD detail. So let me close this elevation and not save it. The next approach is to place your schedule in a CAD detail. I have my project browser open on the right-hand side of my screen, and there's a category called CAD details in your plan files. It's important you do these in your plan files and not your layout file. The plan file is where the actual architectural elements are located, and that way they'll be linked to the schedule. You can right-click on the CAD details and say New CAD Detail. Now let's give it a name. Let's call this Cabinet Schedule. This is going to open up a brand new workspace within the plan. Here's where I can place the schedule. It's a clean workspace. Underneath the Tools menu, let's come down to the Schedules category, and I'm going to choose Cabinet Schedule. I'll place the schedule. I'll press the space bar to get out of the schedule mode. This is the default schedule that I happen to be using. If your schedule doesn't quite look like that, let's double click and investigate and see how it can be customized. On the general panel, the name of the schedule, I'll go ahead and customize that. Let's call that the bath cabinet schedule. Include objects from all floors. This is a pretty simple plan that I have open. If I uncheck that, you can choose by floor for your schedules. You can also choose which specific rooms you want in your schedule. Let's clear all. And for the bathroom suite, I'm going to check the actual bath itself. There's a sauna, there's a shower, and there's a water closet. If I were using a fixture schedule, those would probably be the relevant rooms that I'd want to choose. Since it's just a cabinet schedule, I'm going to specifically use the bath suite for that room. As I move down, the included categories is defaulting into cabinets. Notice towards the bottom, soffit, shelves, partitions, and other are unchecked. This is a preference. if you want to exclude or include certain items, some people don't like to put fillers in there. You can uncheck this and customize this how you want. You can also include other categories. Notice all the other categories as we scroll down. So I could actually customize this cabinet schedule. Maybe I wanted millwork in there or something else. This schedule can be customized to include other categories than just cabinets. On the columns and rows panel, let me pull this over a little bit so we can see some of the columns and rows that you can see in the schedule that I placed over here. The available columns are on the left side. So you can click on these items. You can use the Add button. If you click on the columns that are already included, you can click on the Remove button. You can move these items up and down by simply coming in here, move it up or move it down, depending on your preference and how you want to set this up, and all the different fields that you want to save to your schedule. A few different items down here. Group similar items. If you have a couple of cabinets that are the exact same configuration, you can group similar items. If you want those to be unique, then you can uncheck that. Display the total for the row. That may be appropriate if I click on the quantity portion. Then I can calculate the total for the quantity of the cabinets in here. A few other options. One of them is minimum rows. You may want to say, why would I use this? If you're going to save this in your template plan, you start a new project, you have no cabinets, you might not see anything. A lot of times I'll set that to at least 1. So I'm going to save that into my template plan. There will be something available there. A few options on preview. Let's move into number formatting. And let's slide this up a little bit so we can see the bottom of the dialog. On the different format columns for numbers, width, depth, height, you can come in and specifically override the format. There's a drop down. You can choose how you're going to format those, the level of accuracy information. On the attributes panel, if you want to have a grid you can see, or a border, you can see how I've set this up to have the grids information, alignment, style, vertical, positioning, the line style, maybe coming from the layer, fill style, main text style. And if you look at the schedule that I have back here, a little bit difficult to see since I have it open and it's grayed out. The main text style, which is the text style that is showing in the cabinet in here, is using the layer for the text style. We'll show that in a second in the active layer display when we close this dialog. The title text, which is the text, you notice the font's a little bit larger in here for the title. It's using a custom text style, so not using the layer, and the height at 10. The header style, it's using the main text style. It happens to be bold, so it's the same font size as the main body. You have control over each one of those. And then on the labels panel, it's use a callout. We'll take a look at that when we close it, or use the label, which is going to be the nomenclature like B24. You can also use both. I'll try and touch on that here in a minute. The text for the label, if you wanted to specifically use a different prefix on here, and then the style for your callouts. If you want to change that, I have the default set to be a circle. A few other settings down in here, and if I come back and touch on the use both callout and label, you can set up a different layer, and I will try and touch on that here in a minute. Let's close this dialog panel as we've discussed most of the settings in here. Let me tile my screens. I'm going to use Shift F6 on my keyboard here. And then I'll also close the active layer display options and project browser to get a little bit more screen real estate. As I zoom in the floor plan view, you can see that the cabinet labels have changed from nomenclature to the callout symbol. Also, the cabinet schedule got quite a bit smaller as I scoped that down to the bathroom only, and it's excluding the closet that is in the bigger picture of the design. So since the cabinet schedule is restricted to the bathroom, I'm only seeing the couple of cabinets. You can see the quantity of 4 and then the quantity of 2 for the different cabinets. The total is showing up since I've totaled that particular column in the schedule. If you want to change the nomenclature back in this view, you can double click on the schedule itself. You'll find this setting underneath the label panel, and it's use label. That will then bring the nomenclature back, and then if you want to, let's go back in there and use both, you'll see both of those, and I will touch on how you can show both of those maybe individually for a floor plan view to show the nomenclature, and maybe in a kitchen and bath view to only show the call out. And I'll probably do that with the door tool. So let's go back in. I'm going to set that to use the call out, and now I've got a nice clean view. I can send the schedule out for the bath cabinets out to the layout. I can send that out to a layout at whatever scale is appropriate, and then I can send this view out at a 1/2 inch scale to the layout, and I have a nice clean view. The advantage of putting your schedules in the CAD details is it's clean, have a separate scale set up. I can save these into my template plan and use them on future work. They're not embedded in an elevation view where it's not really relevant to reuse it. The schedule you'll see in the project browser is underneath the CAD detail. It's also duplicated in a category underneath schedules. You might ask, why is that? Why there are two? Some people will put their schedules in several places. The plan view, an elevation view, maybe a CAD detail. They don't know where they're placed, and so the schedules location will show you where your schedules are, and you can simply double click and it will open it up. So I have a few more items in this cabinet schedule. I'm going to open it up, and on the general panel I'm going to say include objects from all floors. That way it will include the schedule from the bathroom and the closet, and now you can see that I have several more cabinets that are showing up in this schedule. I talked about the font size for the schedule, and that was using the layer. Let me just tap on this. Let's open up our active layer display. You can see that's on the schedules layer, and for this layer set, it's using the detail layer set. The text style is set to use the schedule style. You can change that by clicking on the define option, schedule style, click Edit, and for this particular font it's using the Chief Blueprint, and then the character height is 8. The nice thing about using the layer to control it, you can have several different layer sets and change your schedule size based on the layer set you're using. That's where the text style is coming from, that main body of the schedule. As long as I have this highlighted, let's click on one of these cabinets towards the bottom. It's a little bit lighter on this row than the other rows, and as I zoom out just a little bit, let's assume I want to sort that. In fact, let's make this view a little bit bigger so it's easier to see. If I want to move this item up, I can move it up and it will renumber it. So let's go ahead and pull that quite a ways up. You see how it renumbers it? So you can resort this by clicking on the object and moving it around. A couple other things you can do. Again, I'm highlighted on the bottom row here. There's an option to say, find that object in plan. Notice that it pushed me into the floor plan, and it's actually highlighted this cabinet in the lower right-hand portion of the closet. From here, I can modify it. It's nice to be able to find it. As I move back over into the schedule itself, you can also open up that object specifically. So again, I've highlighted the bottom row, and there's an option in the lower edit menu to say open row object. This is the same thing as opening up this cabinet from a floor plan view or from an elevation view or 3D view. You can now go in and modify it. Be a little careful if you're going to be modifying maybe the width or the depth. You may step on other items that are adjacent to it, so it's nice to be able to modify it. As long as we have this open, let's move over onto the schedule panel and take a look at some of the things that you can do with a specific cabinet or any other object that is going into a schedule on the schedules panel. At the top, notice that it is marked to include in schedule. If you have an object, maybe a client's bringing a piece of furniture to the project, you don't want it in your schedule but you want to show it in the design, you could uncheck that and move it out of the schedule. You can show the schedule callout and the location. You can also include it, maybe not as a cabinet, but maybe as a piece of furniture. So you can come down here, you could come down into the furnishings category and change where that's going to come into the schedule. Notice that I actually have it in 2 locations, which is fine. It will be duplicated, and this is on the schedule panel where you have that information. On the object information panel, you can also come in here and put information in for specific objects that you want to show in the schedule. There's a code, there's a comment, there's a description. A lot of times there's an automatic description. If you want to come in and type something over it, the manufacturer, let's go ahead and add a manufacturer in here. And then the supplier, maybe that's the installer. And then very bottom is custom object fields. I've created one. If you want to learn more about these, this is for the width and the height for each one of these face items. If you want to learn more about macros, you can look at the help option to learn more about those. With this information, the manufacturer, XYZ, let's go back into the schedule, and you notice that I don't have the manufacturer column in the schedule. I'll double click, and let's take a look at the rows and columns, and I'm after manufacturer. I'll press the letter M here. Let's go in, and where I click, if I add that, notice that it comes in down below here, and then you can see that the manufacturer is listed for that bottom cabinet. Other editing for your schedules. Let's click back on the schedule. You're going to see a series of marks, edit marks up here, and I can resize that. Notice how it wraps the information, manufacturer. If I have a very small manufacturer name, I may want to come in, let's click on the manufacturer, and I can rename that. So in this case, let's just call it MFG, and now I've controlled that header to be a shorter header and saved a little space. As we zoom over here, let's say that we want to make this thumbnail quite a bit larger, and just by clicking on this column resize, it will adjust and make those a different size. Now at that point you can see that it wrapped. I want to have it just so that that item is not wrapping. You can also scale these images. If we double click, go back into the item in here, there's an option to scale those images. Once it's scaled, if you have a very large cabinet compared to a small cabinet, it will rescale and you can control the size of those thumbnails. The schedule is still selected, and when the schedule is selected, you should have an edit toolbar at the very bottom. There's several tools in addition to the ones I've already pointed out. Let's just kind of point to a few of these. Export text, if you want to export the text, maybe copy it into Microsoft Word or another object, you can export the text. The next one is find in library. These are specific cabinets. It may not be relevant. If it were an electrical schedule and it's recessed can or pendant light, this would open up the library to the specific one. Find in plan, set it as your default schedule, which is nice because once you've edited it, you can set it as your default style schedule. Kind of skip over to the next one, which is reset column widths. Notice how I changed the manufacturer column. You could reset the widths. The schedule, if you want to renumber these items, if you've deleted a cabinet out and it's skipping over CO2 down to CO4, you can use this tool to renumber your schedule. And then text, it will convert your schedule to text. It becomes a text object. It's no longer dynamic. It's a textual based item. You may find that helpful if you want to copy your text as well. There's a spell check option and then some formatting for justification. The final tool that I'll point out in the edit toolbar is add to library. When you add your schedule to the library, notice that my library opened up and it's already got the name in here. I can right click on this, I can open this up and edit it further. It looks much like we have with the schedule that's in the background. When it's in the library, it's not associated with any plan. You can place it and use it from your library. You may find that helpful. I prefer to save these into my template plan as an option to saving it in the library. So again, a lot of tools that you can find in the lower edit menu when you're modifying your schedules, and just be sure to hover over those and you can see the help on exactly what all of these tools do in the lower edit menu. Let's take a look when you place another schedule, and I'm going to place another cabinet schedule and just show you what may occur. Underneath the Tools menu, let's come down to Schedules, and I'm going to place another cabinet schedule, and I'm just going to leave it as the default settings. I move back over into the floor plan view, and as I zoom in, you're going to see a duplicate setting of labels. Because I have two schedules, the program wants to put a label on each one. So if you're getting duplicate schedules, you may want to remove that secondary schedule or suppress showing the labels. Let me press undo to get rid of that second schedule. One of the next common things that comes up is when you're working with a schedule, and in this case let me bring up an image here, you may have a large plan with several items in the schedule and you want to break it into multiple columns. Here's an approach that I will typically take. For the door schedule, let's assume I want this in 2 columns. The first option, as I double click to open this up, might be to restrict the schedule based on floor. And inside the schedule, at the top on the general panel, you can include this from floor 1, you can duplicate it, and then do the same thing and include it from floor 2. So there's a few options you can do to exclude it, and then you can have 2 side-by-side schedules. If that still doesn't work and you have a long schedule, you can duplicate it and crop it. Let's just take a quick look at how you might do that. So I've already sent this schedule out. It's for the entire plan, and I want to duplicate it. So all I'm going to do is, let's just slide a copy clear off to the side. Let's zoom in a little bit. I'm going to turn on my crosshair so I can kind of use this as an option. And I'm going to decide that I'm going to crop that maybe right in this area right here. So I'm going to click on this. I'm going to crop this so you can see that's cropped. And then I'm going to do the same thing over here. I'm going to crop that so that it's down right in here. I'm going to pull that over, and maybe down. I'm not going to worry too much about the alignment for the session. And then we'll pull the door schedule down. That's an easy way to create multiple columns. You just have to kind of duplicate it, send it out to the layout, and you saw my approach to address schedules when they're quite large and you need to separate them into multiple columns. Let's take a look at how you can show nomenclature and a call out in different views. Let's move back over into the plan that we're working on. In this view, which is the floor plan shell, you see that in my Save Plan view, I've got the nomenclature being displayed for the doors. And then I want to make sure that I'm showing the door call out in the kitchen and bath view. As I kind of switch over to the kitchen and bath view, you don't see any label. And let's take a look at how we could show the difference between a label call out and nomenclature. Let's open up the project browser. I'm going to come over to CAD Details. I'm going to say New Detail, and we'll give it a name of Door Schedule. And then from the Tools menu, let's come up, Tools, Schedules, and I'm going to place a door schedule. Let's go ahead and open this up. And on the label panel, I want to use both the call out and the label. Now, in the case that I just discussed, I only want to see nomenclature in the floor plan view, and then I want to see a call out specifically for the kitchen and bath view. So that means rather than just checking this and closing the dialog, I'm going to create a new layer for the item specifically for the call out. So I've come down to the call out, I've used the custom layer. Let's go ahead and click the Define button down here. And typically, let's type in the word door. There's a door labels, and I'm going to go ahead and create a copy of that. Let's go ahead and create a copy of it, and I'm going to rename this to callouts. I've got 2 specific layers for the doors. I've got the labels and I've got the callouts. Now that I've assigned that to the door callouts label, I now have control over a new layer. So let's close the dialog here, and then let's move back over into the floor plan view. In this kitchen and bath view, let's go ahead and tap on the door, open up the active layer display, and I'm going to turn on the layer for the callouts that was just created. And let's go ahead and zoom in. Let's deselect that door. You now see the callout D01. Let's switch the Save Plan view to the floor plan shell that we were looking at. You see both the nomenclature and the callout. Let's go ahead and highlight the door. let's turn off, in this case, the callouts. And now I've got the nomenclature in the floor plan view. You see how I've got the nomenclature for the hinge door, the nano wall. I move back over into the kitchen and bath view, and it's showing only the callout. So by doing both on the label, again, let's just kind of go back in here and take a look at it. By using both and then coming down to the callout layer, putting it on a specific layer, you can then control the way that looks for your views, specifically for a callout and for nomenclature. For the session here, we've created two schedules, one for doors, one for cabinets. The program includes several schedules that are available that you can create. I like to create these one time and save them into my template plan. If I move over into the project browser, the plan that we had open for that door schedule that we created on two different columns, if you look inside of the schedules that are available in here, you can see that I have several schedules that are available. Bath notes, fixture schedule, exterior keynotes, several schedules. I may not use all of the schedules. These are saved in my template plan, and when I begin a new project, they then self-populating. The question is, how do you create a template plan once you've created the schedules? In this plan for the session, I created a door and a cabinet schedule. Those are two things I don't want to do again. I want to save those into the template plan. I'm going to come over into the File menu, and underneath Templates is an option to Save as Template. The dialog for Save as Template, there's a few things I want to remove. The CAD details, that's where we saved all of those items that were in the CAD details. I want to make sure that I am not removing those. Also, the option for schedules. So those are two of the most important things that I will make sure that I remove. Most of the other settings are fine. You can learn more about those. And then if you want to actually use this as your default template, you can mark that, click OK. The program will prompt you where you want to save it, typically in the version you're using. And I'm just going to come over here and call it my plan template. And then each time I create a new schedule or make any changes to the template, I can step on that and save it and leverage that work for future projects. Well, that wraps up this session on schedules. Be sure you save those into your template plan as a CAD detail. Enjoy the productivity boost on your future work, and thanks for watching.